Nothing focuses the mind like failure. Let me tell you my story. I went to Brooklyn Technical High School, where we were told that we're all engineers. But when we got to college, we were told, look around you because the people around you will not be there when you graduate. We laughed, but it was true. After the first term, there's a 50% attrition rate every term. And after the first term, all the tech football players were gone. They transferred to phys ed. I got 3 Bs. Using the same strategy I used in high school. This is what got me through high school. I'd fool around all term, cram like crazy for the final, and ace it, so they couldn't fail me. The second term, I got all C's. Well, some were C minus and one was actually a D. The third term, I excelled myself. I got a D and an F in my engineering courses. They kicked me out of engineering. I took a term of technical courses. I got all A's and B's, so I said, this is no challenge. Let me back into engineering. The dean of engineering said, no, you're doing fine where you are. I said, let me take this one engineering course. Let me show you what I can do. She said, no. So I was standing there with this registration card, and I said, at the bottom it says dean's signature. What does this mean? And I was told, a dean must sign here. And I thought, a dean? I found a dean in another part of the college. I told him my story, and he signed off on it. That was the second time in my life that an old Irish guy had been kind to me. I took the course, I focused, I applied myself, and then I went in for that final exam. I sat down, and who came in but the professor who failed me? Now, I swear there was a sadistic gleam in his eye when he saw me. He walks in, and he says, okay, you need a problem for the final exam. Now, I'm going to try and simplify this for those of you who are not engineers. He says, let's see. Okay, I got it. A 100-pound boy rises by 20 miles an hour off a cliff 100 feet high. Tell me everything. I want to know displacement, velocity, acceleration, horizontal, vertical, rotational. I want to know what happens at the beginning, at the end, and at the midpoint. I want diagrams, equations. Tell me everything. Go. And we reacted the same way you do. Just that. We were stunned. I sat there frozen. Then I said, wake up! Focus! You got this. So I started with a diagram, which is always a good place for an engineer to start. I started deriving equations, and I worked this problem religiously, assiduously, continuously. I kept working it, working it, working it. There was nothing else in the room while I was doing that. When I finished, I put my pencil down, and I closed my answer booklet. I looked around. Nobody else was finished. There was plenty of time, but I would not review my work. I was done, and I didn't want to sit there. So I got up, and I sheepishly put my answer booklet on the professor's desk, and I tried to sneak out of the room. But as I reached for that door, I heard him say, Cretella! Now all the eyes in the room were on me. I turned around, I walked back to that desk, and I swore he was going to say, take this back, fix it, don't make me fail you again. But you know what he said? He said, you, my boy, are a success story. That was the day I felt that I was becoming an engineer. Now, there's an interesting postscript to this story. About a year later, I'm taking analytic geometry and calculus. The professor walks in the room and he says, our problem today is we have a three-dimensional figure in space defined by this equation. We have another three-dimensional figure in space defined by this equation. And our job is to find out the volume where these two figures intersect. Now, it was confusing for us because we couldn't even figure what these things look like. But he went to the board and he started drawing diagrams, deriving equations, and he filled up the entire front board with all these hieroglyphics. when he ran out of room, he went to the sideboard. He did the same thing over there. When he ran out of room, he went to the other sideboard, did the same thing there. Then at one point, he circled something. He dragged the chalk across the whole wall and said, you plug this in here, and that's your answer. Any questions? Now, by this point, half the class was asleep. The other half, their heads were spinning, trying to figure this out. And one person raised his hand. Me. I said, excuse me, didn't you find the volume of the wrong part? Everybody looked at me like I was nuts. There was this pregnant pause where the silence was deafening. The professor looked at me. Then he turned around, he examined his work. And he turned to me and he said, well, yes, but you do it the same way. At that point, I realized I was now operating at a peer level with my professor. We were talking the same language. And the best part, I was the only one who knew what he meant when he said, you do it the same way. That's when I realized I had arrived as an engineer. Now, there are many lessons you can take from this story, but the overarching one is this. Nothing will make you focus like failure. The biggest lessons in life come from failures. And nothing will make you focus like failure. Now, the bad news is the big lessons in life come from failure, but the good news is you don't have to go through the failure yourself. You can learn from my failure. This is what I keep trying to tell my son. So he asks you to remember, the biggest lessons in life come from failure because nothing focuses the mind like failure. Nothing focuses the mind like failure.